Hey everyone, how's it going? Dave here with another video. This is going to be part 1 of my Adobe Premiere for Beginners series, and today we're going to focus on opening up a project for the first time. Now when you go to open up your first Premiere project, it may seem a little confusing and daunting as to what to do and where to go. So this tutorial is going to clear that up for you so you know what to do with your first Premiere project. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so jumping right into it, once you launch the Premiere Pro program, this is what you're going to see by default. If you have already gone in there and changed the preferences, you might not see this, but for pretty much every other user, this is the welcome screen that you're going to get with the newer versions of Creative Cloud. I'm on the latest 2017 build if you were curious. So again, this is the start and the welcome screen. What you'll see right off the bat are your recent projects, so things you've worked on recently on this machine. You can see you have a few YouTube videos and a freelance project I was working on. Over here in CC files, these are Creative Cloud files that you synced across other devices if you like to use that feature of Creative Cloud. And sync settings will let you synchronize your settings from other devices across Creative Cloud. I don't use these too much. My settings pretty much are the same throughout, and I don't really use the Creative Cloud file section over here. If you do use that though, you can utilize these two sections. Over here you have new project, open project. I'll go into new project in just a moment. That's where the bulk of this video is going to be. Open project, again, you're going to open up a project wherever it might be on your computer if you don't see it, say, in like the recent section. And then you have new team project and open team project. As of the recording of this video, these are still in beta, and I believe you need a certain Creative Cloud account in order to use these. So let's get into a new project. That's what the bulk of this video is going to be. When you click on that, you're going to get this dialog box. And first thing you'll see is name untitled. This is what you're going to actually name the project file, and that project file is going to become a .proj file extension. I like to be as descriptive as possible when it comes to naming these things. That way down the road, say a few months from now, if you have to revisit a project for yourself or for a client, you know what you're looking for. So since I am going to be doing this video for the YouTube, I will say Adobe Premiere tutorial master 001. I like to use underscores instead of spaces because sometimes the computer and the files can get confused when you use spaces in names. That especially happens if you go between, say, like a Mac and a PC, or just between two different computers. Underscores are typically safe to use. Under that, you'll see location, and this is going to be where you're going to actually save your project file. I would highly recommend not saving things to the desktop because things can get very cluttered and confused, and where you save things is very important. Now, if you have more than one drive on your machine, you can use those other drives. If you only have one hard drive, you can just save it to your main C drive or whatever your main hard drive is. I have a few external drives that I usually edit off of. That's going to be my Passport Pro over here, the one that I use for YouTube. And I have a whole YouTube folder over here. And we can go, I already made a folder for this Premiere tutorial. And as you can see, I have a project folder, and I have a Premiere folder over here. And I can select this, and that way I know I can go into this video and go to projects, Premiere, and all the Premiere projects will be in here. That's my workflow for this. You may do things a little bit differently, but it's best to do things that keep things very organized and clean. Now, in the general settings, there is one main area I want to focus on, and is the video rendering and playback engine. By default, for the most part, you're going to have the OpenCL on here. OpenCL will utilize the graphics card if it's like an AMD card or you have more than 1 gig of video memory. This is the thing that most people will use. If you have a desktop with, say, an NVIDIA card that supports CUDA cores, instead of saying OpenCL over here, it's going to say CUDA. CUDA tends to be a little bit better and more powerful for this. Even though Premiere still mainly utilizes the CPU, it can leverage the GPU for things like video effects, transitions, those kinds of things. So again, if you have OpenCL, pretty much use that. If it says CUDA, use CUDA. The other option down here is for Metal. This is pretty much Apple only. This is a recent graphics engine that Apple has introduced with the newer versions of macOS. It isn't that good in my personal testing. There are certain things like the Lumetri colors that don't really work very well, and there are some glitches. So if you are on a Mac, I would say avoid this for a little bit until an Apple or Adobe kind of fix that. And lastly, you have the software only option. You'll use this if your video card isn't supported or if it's like an older card on an older machine. I would try to avoid this at all costs. While it does work, say if like you're on a laptop and you have just like an i5 or an i7 with no graphics card, this might be your only option. However, you have OpenCL. I would go for that. Now, if for some reason you go to click on OpenCL or something like CUDA and it doesn't work, you will get a dialog box that pops up. However, Premiere will still try to utilize the best rendering option for you. Now, the options down here aren't super necessary for the most part for most of the videos people on YouTube will be creating, but they are important to go over. So as we see under video, we have display format. This shows how time is measured for your video. Timecode is set by default, and in timecode, time is measured by hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. That will alter depending on what frame rate you shoot in, so 24, 30, 60, all that stuff. Now, feet in frames and frames down here refer to actual film that's been digitized and scanned into the computer. Again, I feel like for most YouTube videos, you won't be using actual film, so we can just ignore those for now. Similarly, under audio, this is just talking about how audio is measured, and by default, it's set to audio samples, and it's basically the number of times per second that the audio is being measured by the computer. You can change the milliseconds if you want to, however, most people just stick with audio samples, and that's pretty much easy to use, so you can leave it by default. Lastly on the screen, you have capture. Capture is going to refer to capturing actual video streams or signals through a hardware device or a USB port. For the most part, you can just leave this as is. Sometimes HDV will be grayed out, sometimes it won't. This doesn't really have an effect on most of the video you're using, since you'll be storing those on like a hard drive or an external hard drive or something for your media files, which I'll go into in another video down the road. So from here, if you would like to, you could just click OK down here and go into your project. However, I am going to go over these two settings real quick because they are kind of important to know, even though you might not fully utilize them. So scratch disks are interesting. It's pretty much where certain files are stored. If you have more than one drive, you can store them on that other drive, but for the most part, by default, it's all set to just as the same as the project. Each setting will do certain things. So captured video and audio is going to refer to this capture setting down here. If you're not doing this, this actually doesn't matter. Just leave that as is. Video previews and audio previews are going to refer to when you go into the render work area settings within your sequence. Again, I can get into those in another video down the road. That's actually having the computer render out the playback so you can have a smooth playback before you render out the final output. Project autosaves, this has saved my butt more than once in the past. So autosaves will be enabled on Premiere Pro, and this autosave section is where those autosaves are going to go. When it autosaves, it does not write over your main project, so it will not overwrite this project. Only I can overwrite that when I hit Control or Command S or go into File, Save Project. If Premiere crashes and it autosaves right before, you'll go into the autosave folder and you'll find your hopefully saved version there. And then CC library downloads, kind of self-explanatory. If you download stuff from Creative Cloud, it'll go to this section. Now you can change these. For the most part, I leave them all as is. Really the only big thing that I care about for me is the autosaves, which just kind of stay in my Premiere folder that I made anyway. And then ingest settings, you probably won't be dealing with this too much. This just deals with how certain footage is pulled into the computer. For the most part, you can just leave this alone and you're fine. So after all that, we are good to go. We can click on the OK button down here and we are launched into Premiere Pro. However, this tutorial is only about that introduction section and that welcome screen, so I am going to stop it here, and then I'll go more in depth in other videos down the road about all of this. Thank you for watching part 1 of my Adobe Premiere tutorial series. Again, this was aimed at those who have never really used the program before, but there was some information in there that people who have used the program before can still utilize. Again, this was part 1, so more will be coming in the future. If there's anything in particular that you want to see, make sure to leave that in the comment section down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more of these videos coming soon. Again, this is Dave, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.